Welcome, everybody. We're jumping in a little bit early because I started a little bit late. Hello, hello. Welcome in. Oh, I guess we're probably in the wrong scene for this turn where we can't see the chat. That's okay. We're gonna be in the code in just a minute anyway. Well, hello, everybody. Whether you're watching this live or you're watching this in the Sublime Text live playlist, welcome everybody. It has been a while since I have been on YouTube. I gotta tell you, I had some personal obligations that were stopping me from streaming for a little bit there on Mondays because I had some other stuff to do, and then I got sick. I got the COVID, and as a result, I couldn't stream for a little while. Not here and not on Twitch either, which was a little bit of a drag. I gotta tell you, I'm feeling much better now. You may notice me doing a little bit of coughing as we do stuff here. That's the only thing that I have left, basically, as a symptom is a coughing. Everything else seems to be perfectly fine, but you know, it is what it is. So I would like to get some more work done on some packages, and also do a little bit more work on getting some more videos out for you guys. I promise that I am working on that. Now, I've mentioned this in the past, of course, but creating videos for topics you already know is a lot easier than creating videos for topics that you don't know, because I got to do the research to learn the information so I can present it to you. And of course, I never want to present partial information. I always want to present information rather that is as complete as is possible. Pardon me, as many videos as that takes. Also working on a getting started with Sublime Text video, which is information that technically I have. Hello, Ben. Welcome. It's just stuff that trying to decide the best way to present it. Basically, is the deal. That cough is still rough, man. So I had somebody ask a question or actually make a feature request for override audit on the issue tracker the other day, and it's actually something that has kind of been in the works for a while, although it has been a while since I actively worked on it, probably about a year, I would think. And this got me to thinking that we should probably get on that, because it was something that I wanted to create just for myself, but now somebody else has actually requested such a thing. It's probably time to actually get on doing it. And that reminds me that what we haven't done is move override audit into the new plugin host and the new version of Sublime Text as well. So I'm thinking we should probably work on some bug fixes or one last release of the package for targeting the version of Sublime Text 3 that is the current target, and then once that one releases, we can close off that avenue of development. And move on from there. It's the same thing I did when we went from Override Audit 1 to 2. We're not going to do that here. We're not going to jump to Override Audit version 3 for this. I went from a 1 to 2 due to what we're referring to as the big scary refactor. I realized after the first package was initially done that adding in extra changes was going to be a giant pain. So, oh, hey, you know what I could actually potentially do here? Hello, Ashwin. If I push the correct sequence of keys here, which would be something like that, this might actually work. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure. Try that a little bit later. I know the YouTube chat is a little bit weird. It goes top down instead of bottom up, so without custom code, it's tricky to get it to do anything. Sorry. So to reiterate, we're gonna work on some Sublime Text development for the next little bit here. We'll see how long I can actually go, because talking sort of exacerbates the cough that I have. There's a couple of features that are currently in progress that we haven't done anything with in a while. One of them is auto freshening expired overrides, so that in one package or across all packages. That's one thing we want to get done. I think that'll be the feature that we do as one last build for Sublime Text 3, and then we can move into Sublime Text 4, and that's going to allow us to do things like take advantage of quick panel list items for icons, kind icons, and the like. The thought occurs that we may have already implemented something like that. Fortunately, I think it looks like we were in a different branch for that, because that's not something that'll work in Sublime Text 3. So that is the plan for that. We should probably hop in and say hello. And of course, as is always the case, if you have any questions about anything we're doing, feel free to drop them into the chat. No worries about causing undue issues and alarm. Being derailed is kind of the raison d'etre of these streams. Let's jump in. Pardon me. Since this is the first YouTube stream that I've done since I got the Stream Deck. As I said, because I had some personal obligations for stuff that was happening on a Monday, and schedules were booked, and then I got sick with the stupid COVID, which I'm still kind of getting over. So part of the reason the stream started a little bit late today is related entirely to the fact that I needed to do some configuration in the version of OBS that I use for YouTube to make sure that things still work. So hopefully everything's cool. If it's not, please do let me know. But I think, except for the fact that the chat, I think, won't actually display any chat until we get a little bit more action going in there, or it's horribly broken, one of the two. There's only one way to find out, realistically. But if I had the chat, you'll see my secret notes. So, first thing we want to check here. The first thing we probably want to do is get rid of that, because we don't actually need any of that business. And we're going to look at this as the package we are currently working on. We are currently on Browse Panel Enhancements. All right, so the latest stable version is there. That is the branch that we were doing something with. We may need to spend some time actually refamiliarizing ourselves with the changes that were made. I'm pretty sure they're like 99% of the way there as far as what the implementation is, except for one thing. We need to decide how exactly we want to solve that, which is displaying the list of things. Now, the thing that was the user actually asked about for other features was this. Patch files. This is a test branch, if you will. The idea of this particular feature is that for any particular package you have overrides in, or for all packages you have overrides in, this functionality would create one single patch file and store it into a buffer, allowing you to save it to disk, which would contain a list of, as a unified diff, all of the package files and the modifications that they have, along with the version of Sublime or the version of the underlying package that that particular diff was based against. And then you could take that one patch file, zip it up, pass it to somebody, send it to them in an email, use it to pass between your own machines, and by applying the patch, you can make sure that you have the exact same overrides on your local system as you had on the other one. This is the sort of thing that makes it easier for users of Sublime that have overrides that they'd like to, that they use rather to customize their version of Sublime, to be able to share them with their other machines, because right now you would have to do that manually or use an external package. But it also opens up support opportunities, because occasionally people ask questions like, hey, how could I blah? And we have to say, well, what you have to do is create a file with this name in a packages folder, make sure that it's in a folder named this, the names of everything need to be exactly identical all the way across the board, put this content in it, and this will happen. Or we could say, assuming you're using Sublime Text build 4126, just install the override audit package, download this file, open it, right click, choose apply patch, you're good to go. So that's a pretty handy thing overall too, I think. That's the theory. Anyway, now we were working in a sample branch, which I believe, because that is part of the packages package, that if we did something like override audit, open resource, we get information about whether this package is a shipped package, an installed package, or an unpacked package. After you choose such a one, you get to see the list of files that are in there. That is just opening any old resource. I could have swore that we had an extra change in there. Maybe we stopped after one. It's one of the things that's going to be coming to one of the newer builds of this after we jump into the new plugin host. If we create override, similar action there. I think we may have only done it for one thing and not for all things, because it was a little bit tricky to determine at the right point. But that is something that we're going to be going for. Now, that particular functionality requires a fairly recent version of Sublime Text, specifically Sublime Text 4, one of the, well, we'd have to look and see what the actual build is. Override audit right now targets Sublime Text 3. And what we're going to do is one last release under that and then cut over. And if we have done this in the past, if we scroll back through the history of the package, we released version 1.1.1, which should be the last release of that particular type. I'm wondering if all of the tags are actually shown there. There we go. 1.2.2 is the last version, pardon me. We're going to need to change that a little bit. Oh, it must be inside one of the folds. This is where we were getting that release ready. Oh, we might have actually released that particular version, but we released basically a legacy version. This all comes down to the idea that the package control channel has tags on versions and specific prefixes, and in order to make, and also the build of Sublime. This is actually something that I owe a video for. Yeah, that would be kind of neat, wouldn't it? Now, I have to admit that I am kind of jaded in this regard. If we look here, let's see, there's a version 1.2.2 and a version 2.2.4. This is the most recent version, which requires Sublime Text 3. If you're using Sublime Text versions prior to the official release of Sublime Text 3, which is earlier versions of Sublime Text before it was officially released as a version, the beta or Sublime Text, well, doesn't work in Sublime Text 2 because you can't do overrides in Sublime Text 2. That is the most recent version that you can get. This is the version for that, and we would need to go to github.com/stealthyandhasty and look in the list of Sublime packages. We can actually show you what it is that's actually happening here. So this is the package entry for override audit. This is the information that package control uses to know where to come get the package and where to actually install it, where the README comes from, and etc. And there are two releases currently in here. If you're using a version of Sublime Text greater than 3197, then anything is installable by you. However, if you're running a build of 3092 to 3196, which is the version right before this one, you can only install versions that are tagged legacy -v. There's only one of those, 1.2.2. So if you're running one of these versions of Sublime Text 3, you can only install that version. If you're running any later version, as of right now, you can install the current version, which is 2.2.4. The reason for doing something like this is that here we wanted to be able to take advantage of things that were available in this build that weren't available in those builds, such as using commands with arguments in the command palette, which I'm not entirely sure we have fully taken advantage of at this juncture. But we would do something similar in this next release of this, which we're working on here, wherein we want to be able to be free. And again, this is why this is not strictly necessary. I'm just, let's say, lazy or selfish. I would like to be able to use not only the command palette and command things, but also the new list item kind information for things, as we just saw a moment ago. And in order to do that, you have to be using a very specific version of Sublime. So our two options are: make sure that the package can only be installed if you're using at least that version, or implement everything twice. Once for older versions and once for newer versions. Or maybe not twice is probably not the best way to say that, but essentially trying to implement it in a way that it degrades gracefully for an older version of Sublime. It's possible to do that. I don't like to do that. As a developer, I always want to be targeting, if you will, the latest and greatest. Realistically, if you are a paid user of Sublime Text, you probably have upgraded to Sublime Text 4 by now, I would think, if you are a power user. This is my logic inside my head. I certainly have, various other people have, and in that case, we want to be able to support that. Now, if you're using one of these older versions, That's perfectly fine. You wouldn't really gain as much use out of those particular features because your version of Sublime doesn't have them. And I never like to version lock anybody and force anybody to upgrade, but I also don't want my code to look like a rat's nest because I'm trying to support multiple versions. So, you know, it is what it is. When we made this split here, we did that one last patch version that could be released to both channels simultaneously, and that was the point at which we made the cut. So version 1.2.2 actually appears twice, you know, in the list. One for with this tag prefix and one with just a V tag prefix. Now, if you're using these versions of Sublime, that's the one it finds. Otherwise, it just finds the native one, so either way you can install it. If you're using a build of Sublime Text prior to this, then it's not supported, and this is pretty close to the front of the Sublime Text 3 development, as you can see, because that's where those started in build 3000. I'm not sure which one of those was actually made publicly available, probably 3010, 2011, something like that. Until this version, all of the functionality that we were using wasn't available, which is why you need to have at least that version. Again, for that same reason, not entirely interested in trying to implement the same thing multiple times for people that are running willfully old versions of Sublime Text. So, for example, we have custom syntaxes in here. There's Sublime syntax format. I'm not going to also pack in a TM language version in a different version of the package, just in case somebody wants to run a version of Sublime Text from 2014. Sorry. That's not worth my time, or I don't feel it's worth my time. If it was a paid thing, that might be an entirely different situation. So, no, I did not. What was the deal? Antivirus? Huh. That is astounding. One thing that I was actually pondering, but I never actually got a chance to look into it, was that something that I got reminded of I've seen that happen for MinGW, and as a matter of fact, it was a major thorn in my side when I was creating the video on how to compile C++ using MinGW, because if you don't set an exclusion, most antiviruses, at least all the ones that I had access to try it, assume that anything compiled by MinGW is a virus due to heuristics. It doesn't find anything, but it finds something that it finds sketchy, and of course that's the way that it's configured. So that's fun. I've never seen that sort of thing happen for Python though, so that's kind of interesting. Apparently Komodo must be pretty exciting, huh? But what I was thinking was, and I never had a chance to look into it and look back and see if that person actually outlined their stuff. So and then I realized it's probably not the case. But it's an interesting thing to ponder. In Sublime Text 3, the Python build system just used shell command and executed Python, which means under Windows it'll work as long as you install Python in the path. And on macOS and Linux, it'll execute Python 2 99.99% of the time, which is usually what people don't want. So the internet is replete with roughly 757 trillion different ways to create a build system, some bad, some worse than bad, some of them passable for doing something with Python 3 instead. I've always advocated open the existing one, copy it, paste it into a new one, change Python to Python 3. You know. But of course we know in Sublime Text 4 that's different now. Now there's a specific override so that on Windows it uses Py, the Py helper, and it uses command instead of shell command. And the interesting thing there is that, and I may be remembering this backwards, but on Windows, one of them, I think command, sets the option to suppress window creation and shell command doesn't, which is something that's specific to Windows, and it means that if you're executing something that tries to create a window, it might not be able to if you happen to be on Windows, assuming I'm remembering that correctly, and I think I am. So it might still be necessary to adjust the build system in some cases. I have a recollection that the reason that I was reminded of that was that someone asked a question in the comments of one of the videos, and I'm like, oh yeah, right, I remember looking into this in the past. Not even for Python, but just for like a build system in general, because somebody was confused about why their build system that they created couldn't start Python or a Notepad on Windows. And I'm like, works fine for me. And then we did a little bit of digging and realized what was going on there. All right, I guess this sneeze isn't going to happen, so that's good. All right, so I guess one thing we should probably do is quit that. That's browser panel enhancements. The most interesting thing that the software that my work laptop has is that occasionally it just keeps popping up. It's a combination security virus scan thing. Yeah, that could be an interesting situation. For the virus scanning part, I don't think it's ever... It must be scanning for viruses, but it never really says anything. I think it's extremely permissive. Mostly it just complains about how it can't download new virus definitions, which doesn't fill me with a lot of calm. But as a security suite, it also attempts to block URLs that it thinks are invalid, which means anything that it deems game related is immediately blocked. So for example, odatnerd.net, heavily game oriented site, who knew? I suspect that it is just, for some of them it's checking the URL. My coworker runs a Mattermost server on his domain, and my work machine can only talk to his Mattermost server over IP, with an IP address rather, and not by hostname. Which doesn't really seem like that kind of good security at all. But occasionally, and I've never been able to figure out what's actually happening or what's doing it. It just seems completely nonsensical. I'll just be sitting here, and it just starts spooling up notifications every 30 seconds that says you tried to visit a website, you can't go to that website, the connection was blocked. Please contact support if you would like to, if you think you should be able to access this site. And I'm like, but I'm just sitting here, I'm not actively doing anything. Some application in the background is doing something. I have no idea what. I assume it's something work related, because the only other thing that I have open is Sublime, and to my knowledge, it doesn't just spontaneously open web pages every 15 seconds. The life is confusing at times. 2.2.4 from stable is probably where we want. What we actually want to do is check out refreshing, which is based on version 2.2.2, and rebase it on here. Am I sharing that? I hope I'm not sharing that. Oh crap, I am. That's an unfortunate turn of events. Well, we're gonna have to make people unhappy. Because I'm not interested in having a merge commit there, and this was a private branch. Whoops. Pardon me. Push. Let's do a little bit of that. All right. Should probably update that one too, but we'll leave well enough alone until we actually get there. So what have we actually done since there? It's probably the intriguing thing to check out here in this particular stream, to plan our course of attack for what it is we actually want to pull off with this operation. Fresh and all expired overrides that are visible in the current report. Okay, so we added a new fresh and all expired overrides. I had this recollection that I had it doing something related to diffing things, but I can't figure what I would have done there. Because if something diffs out as being the same file, why would you even have it there to begin with? I probably was related to the idea that a lot of the internal package developers, or sorry, the developers that help with the internal packages, I should say, or the open source packages, keep symlinked versions laying around, and it keeps override auto keeps marking them as being invalid when necessarily they may not be. I think we can start that safely. And I'm sure that all loaded okay-ish. Yeah. Yep. Yep, cool. All right. I participated in a Stack Overflow the other day where someone said they were trying to extend the HTML package, but it gave them an error message about how all versions of the syntax have to, or all of the contributing files in the syntax have to be the same version, but the documentation doesn't say anything about version, so they didn't know what to do. So I added a comment that with a link to the documentation that says this page here discusses it, and the solution to your problem is to add version 2 to your file, which I thought was kind of funny. So there's probably, I guess we may need to fake something here. Why are there no differences found for that? Oh, that's one of my own packages. Never mind. That's a file that isn't actually supposed to exist here. I'm not entirely sure what that one would even be. But we'll leave well enough alone, and of course, that. So, we might say something like, ooh, exciting. That means my mail is probably going to blow up because I have a thing that's scheduled for, I don't even remember now, that syncs the documentation to see if it's, so I can have a local version for snappy stuff. Are you fleshing out stuff that's already there or adding whole new interesting bits and bobs? Queue up the standard request for a version of the API documentation that's somehow machine readable without having to scrape the HTML, even though it's a gigantic pain in the butt. We want the minus date, I think, is what we're looking for here. I am one of those nerds for which documentation is exciting. Check it out. The paste from history override is expired, and that particular scope does not look that great for the purposes of this. Freshen all expired unchanged overrides. I guess we must have had very specific desires there. I assume that's what that one is. Freshen all expired override. Oh, is that on the actual? Or did we? Oh, we may have changed it after the fact, I suppose. And there's a version of it in the tools menu. Tools, override audit, freshen all expired unchanged overrides. Yeah. Okay. Freshen all command. And what it does is thus. I see why we sort of stuck on this one for a second. Freshen all the expired overrides in all packages represented in the current report so it's no longer considered expired. This does what the override audit freshen package command does, but for all packages and not just the one under the cursor. That's why you gotta, even with these comments, we may take, we have an option for that. Okay. I'm assuming at some point we decided we wanted to sort of change how that actively works. So it's either every override in every package, in which case, so what are we doing here? We're figuring out what view this is triggering in. We're getting the argument for only unchanged, defaulting it to true unless it's specifically set to false. Getting the list of packages with expired overrides, which is a setting that's applied to all reports. Hey, thank you, R. Montgomery. Welcome to the stream. We're working on my package override audit right now, but if you have any questions about anything, feel free to drop them in the chats, because that is what we are here for. 50% or 60% or 70% helping people that have problems with Sublime Text, and the remainder of the percent actually giving myself some time to work on some of my packages, because I've been very busy as of lately. But thank you so much for the kind words. More videos will be coming soon. I'm working on them. I just exhausted all of the readily explainable topics. That's going to be... we're just saying, when one of these reports is generated, one of the things that has to happen here is it has to do a lot of work to figure out which of the packages you have installed are either shipped or installed, which is what these indicators mean. Oh, maybe we should add a, maybe we should start with a hover. Easy video service that a newbie can use. I find YouTube is actually pretty good for that. Maybe we want a different feature for this. Or maybe not. Because we have this. I forgot about that. I don't know that it necessarily... Well, thank you. Oh, I don't have that list anywhere, do I? Hang on. Thank you for going to the wrong window. Hang on. Documentation. Ooh, I better update that, I suppose, huh? The only video services that I personally have used at all are YouTube and Vimeo. I never really did much with Vimeo because their free account is limited in the amount of footage that you can put up, and perhaps more appropriately, the way that their terms are written, you're not allowed to create tutorials for any sort of commercial software unless you have a paid account. The way I read it, I would have been in trouble unless I footed a big bill to Vimeo to be able to put footage up. So I went with YouTube, but I do keep all of the a version of all of the videos just in case. Although they do mention YouTube, I suppose, so that's probably not as exciting as it could be. But apart from that, I've not used any of the other services. The nice thing about YouTube is that anybody can create an account and it's free. License, well out of date. Well, I guess that might be the way to go. Override report showing only modified, deleted, new files. Automatically freshen files that have no changes. That's the thing we kind of have here. Keyboard friendly. Couldn't remember if... Yeah, that one's a bit of a pain in the butt. That one might actually even be existing already. It must have been something that somebody said that didn't actually, they didn't log an issue for. When one of these override reports is generated, or when a diff report is generated, which looks a little something like this. Let's look at all of the three different kinds of reports. There's a package report. There is an override report. There is an override report for only expired things, which in this case is only that one item. There is a well, they are reports, even though they don't necessarily mention it. But if we did this, this is a report that is a diff of all of the files in a particular package. In this case, we chose the default package. We can also do an override audit bulk diff all packages, like so, which is showing all of the changes to all of the packages. So that's the default package, that's the outliner package. And here you notice that the Python package, there's no difference between this. This is an override that exists but otherwise has no changes. Other report that we can generate here would be bulk diff all packages excluding unchanged. So here it still has the default files. It still has the that part's not actually even needed anymore. There's the outliner package when I swapped the color scheme for it. And you might note that this one, what order did it put these in, man? Oh, it replaced the thing. Now this is showing only modified overrides. Overrides with unchanged content may exist. That's why there's a warning there. And the Python thing is gone because that file wasn't actually touched. Okay, and I think that's like all of them. We can refresh a particular report. That definitely reuses, which is interesting. I would not have expected that. I mean, I must have at the time because I implemented it, right? For all of these, when these things are loaded up, sorry, we're gonna go with something like that. There's that one, and there's that one. That is the default package. There's just the list of regular overrides, and this is a list of all overrides. So all of these reports, to some degree, this one too, but not in exactly the same way. But this needs to come up, oh, sorry, let's do them in this order. This needs to find every package everywhere. It needs to find every package that ships with Sublime. It needs to find every package that's in the installed packages folder, which includes subfolders of the installed packages folder. This is possibly a little known fact, but you can create subdirectories under your installed packages folder and put packages inside of there, and they're just loaded as if they were in the top level. So nothing really does that to my knowledge, because most everybody uses package control to install packages, and it doesn't delineate things that way, but it's entirely possible for it to install things that way. So we have to find all of the list of all of those packages. Then we have to find in the packages folder the names of every folder, because each folder name there represents the name of a package as well. And for systems that have case insensitive file systems like Windows and Mac OS, we need to try to coalesce those. So something that's spelled default like this and something that's spelled default all uppercase, on those two operating systems, actually they refer to the same package, whereas on Linux they wouldn't, because Linux's operating system, file system rather, has case sensitive names. So we need to do a big scan to find all of these. And that's true for any one of these reports, realistically. If we need to generate the list of overrides, then there's a little bit of work that goes into this, because in order for a file to be considered an override, and we're going to mention this here, maybe I can use this as part of a video clip in an upcoming video, but many people think that if you create a folder named HTML, for example, or Python in your user package, you know, the package that you get to when you choose preferences, browse packages. I don't normally do this from the menu. It's right at the top there. And this thing opens up. One of the folders that's going to be in here is user. People think, or some people think, that if you were to create a folder in here named Python and then put something in it like python.sublime build, what you're actually doing is overriding the version of the file that ships with the Python package with something else. And that is not true. So if you're one of the people that thinks that that's how that works, it doesn't. I've seen a few people do that now. Most recently, someone who asked a question in the override audit issue tracker. But I've also seen it mentioned on the Discord. That's not how that works. In this folder named packages, each one of these is a distinct package. The contents of the stuff that goes inside of there is the content of that package and that package only. By convention, an override is a folder in this packages folder with a name, a top level name, not an internal name, a top level name that exactly matches the name of one of the files in the installed packages folder. So for example, if we were to look in my packages folder, we could see that there is a folder here named Python, if I knew how the alphabet worked. This one right here. This folder is named Python. There is a package that ships with Sublime Text called Python. So this is an override. There is a folder in my packages folder named outliner. Again, if I knew how the alphabet worked, that would probably work a little bit better. Put that in the correct order. Outliner. Folder here, 2 files. Up here in the installed packages folder, there's a file named outliner. So the contents of the outliner folder is an override. If I created a folder named outliner inside of my user package, what I've done is I've created a folder named outliner in my user package. So don't fall for that as an actual situation because you will end up confused. Depending on what it is you're trying to do, it might kind of look like it works, but really it doesn't, and it's just a fluke. So for each one of these things, we need to determine if the same package appears in more than one place. And the only way for something to be an override is if there's an unpacked folder that exists with a name that is identical to the name of a Sublime package file, either in the installed packages folder or in the folder that is in the installation directory of Sublime Text that lists all of the packages that it ships with. Only those are overrides. So in order to generate information on what's an override and what's not, we actually need to spin through and find the names of all of these files. We also need to open the Sublime package file, which is just a zip file, and get the list of its contents, which fortunately is fairly lightweight because it's just a zip file and that information is readily available. And compare those two. Any file that appears in the Sublime package file and appears in the unpacked packages folder, in the folder of the same name, is a file that represents an override, such as all of the files that you see here, those ones and this one. If a file appears in the unpacked folder but not in the Sublime package file, it's marked with one of these things to let you know this isn't an override, but there is an HTML package and there's an unpacked thing here. This is an indication to you that either you were working on this package and you meant to make this a part of it and you forgot, in which case maybe you forgot to check a file in or something, or you used to have an override on this file and now the package no longer contains it, so maybe you don't need this anymore. That's why these are called out with a little flag here. And there's one last test that's done, which is this. This is an indication, this little X, that this is an expired override. And we can see in the list of expired overrides, there is only the one. What is an expired override? An expired override is the situation where the contents of this folder here, again, if we do this, there is a folder in here named default. There is 2 files in here. We can see them right there. This file has a date of 2012. Right there, you can see that right there. This is, and the reason for that is earlier in the stream I set it to be a date of 2012 specifically so that we can see that it's expired here. However, the default.sublime package file has a timestamp that's more recent than 2012 because this build came out like a month ago. So from that, we can deduce that we created this file a decade ago, but now the package file is newer. Sublime's always going to use this version here. An expired override is an indication that you may want to take a look at this. This file has been potentially changed by the author of the package since you created this override. That could be useful information because remember the override audit's whole raison d'etre is to make life a little bit nicer. Now, all of these do the same sort of thing. These ones take it one step further and actually compare the contents of the file on disk so that I can not only see that I have an override in the default package, but that it's named paste from history and that it is expired, but also this file was last modified on the 2nd of April. I presume. And this one was last updated on the 5th of May, or the 2nd of May, sorry, in 2012. This is the version that ships with Sublime. This is my version, and this is how it's different. The version in the folder has extra lines, and in this one, instead of a show pop-up menu, it's showing a quick panel. The point of this whole operation is that my paste from history information is displayed in a different way. I prefer that to the menu. All of this stuff that's calculated takes time. So we want to sort of cache it, if you will, because there's various things that we need to be able to do here. For example, using the symbol list, we can easily jump between things. That's probably better expressed in something like this, where we can see that's the default package, the HTML package, the outliner package, the Python package, and these are the files that are overrides. So you could easily see one and jump to if you wanted. We could say def paste or such. Sorry. You can also do that in this thing here to jump to specific packages as well. So the information on that and the files that are in here are actually stored inside of settings. Now, one of the policies that we thought might be handy, and this might be what our first feature to add here is, because it's something that people have wanted for a while, is filtering. Now, specifically, somebody has asked me this, but they didn't add it as an issue, so I can't remember exactly what the theory was. Something like you press a key and only certain, overrides of a certain type are redacted from the list, or not, or brought back, if you will. Now I'm trying to recall into what situation that would actually have been used, because I'm not entirely sure. Whoops. That's one thing we could do. We have this hover pop-up. We could potentially have a hover pop-up on the names of things that tell you if it's expired or not. The hover pop-up for this should really also pop up on that part as well, I think. It's only using package name here. So that might be one thing, because people are confused about that all the time. What those actually mean. That's why we created this. You can see that it ships with Sublime. It's not installed, but it is in the packages folder. And this one doesn't ship with Sublime, but it is in the installed packages folder, and it is in the packages folder. There's even some commands in here, like being able to run a diff or create a new override in the outliner package, which will show us all the files that aren't already overrides in there. That seems like it might be a nice quality of life improvement for these things. So if you can hover over those to see. And if we could hover over these as well, that would also be good. So maybe we could do something like that. There's not a decent scope on those, is there? I think there might be on this. Meta override expired for all of those 3 characters. And meta override unknown on those ones. Yeah. Why did we not do that for these? It would have to be on all of them. Everything that's marked as a storage modifier, theoretically. I guess probably because we never really needed to grab one out before. if I had to guess. Let's do this. Just so that we can have a bunch of these things to look at. We don't need you for the time being. We'd probably want to be on a different branch for this as well. So just for our sake here, let's quit that and well, actually, stable is the released version, master is the version that we're building towards something, so let's do that. Wow, origin is behind. Okay. All right, so with that in play, we come back to here. That should still load okay. And it does. We've got some crap laying around that should probably be cleaned up. But that's neither here nor there. All right, so package report is gonna be this one. Entity package shipped. Okay, that's cool. This must be entity package installed. Entity package unpacked. Should probably throw a meta on those too. If we're going to look at all of the syntaxes here. Okay. Nope. We should probably fix that package too, as a matter of fact. Okay, so we have that. Oh, let me just make a note. Meta.package.shipped and dot installed, and that one must be unpacked. Okay, just so we can remember these things. Okay, let's see. Syntax test package report. Really? We're not testing those? Oh, there we are. That is the package name enabled. What the hell? What was that one even trying to test? Oh, because there's spaces in the name. That's why. Those tests are less interesting. Okay. So we can make sure that when we do that, we're actually doing it successfully. We're going to be very unhappy about this in just a moment. I can almost guarantee it. Because those are the ones that we want for the package report. It only has the one simple situation. We'll keep that around. The next one is an override report, which you will recall looks a little something like this. There's also one for expired only. It uses the same syntax definition. It just generates less stuff into it. So here we have a meta override expired, and here we have a meta override unknown. I assume we have a syntax test for that. Because if not, we've done something terribly wrong. Meta override expired. Yep. And text override audit and meta override unknown. Yes. So what we're missing here is having a metascope associated with these. All of them realistically. Because you might want to pull them out. Although in the package report we're doing that with 3 separate things because the way that the table is laid out, there are 3 separate things. Here, the short form version of this makes more sense to have all of them that way. So the thing that is currently implying storage.modifier in here, which is this. I assume there's really only one of those. Yeah. Why are we doing that? An intriguing question. Yeah, I'm not the one who wrote that one. I'm not entirely sure where that, why he did that. That's something that Keith created. Feels wrong to not have the meta package specifier on the parentheses. I really don't want to have to grab it otherwise, though. So. Oh, whoops. Oh, no, I don't need to do that. So the first capture group is that one, the second capture group is that, and the third capture group is that. Well, keep in mind that this has been around, like this isn't even a version 2 syntax at this point, but we should probably switch that when we go into the new thing. This where is that even coming from? That's this one, right? Oh, I think I remember why it's doing that now. Because of that. We wanted to, if I remember correctly, which is always a skip here, we need to match the name of a package, and the idea here is that instead of having the same sets of rules in a bunch of places, we can just pull it once. Maybe there's a cleaner way to do this now by having a hidden syntax that's not applied to anything that has rules for that, and then having all of these extend that one so that they automatically get those contexts. Is that how that works? I think that's how that works. But I can see why we didn't do that initially. So something like that. That's just a modifier. That is a meta package specifier. That's a meta package specifier, and that's a meta package specifier, and that is that. We might also say that that is a punctuation dot definition dot what? Something like y'all. Just because you might want to know those that you can target them differently. You probably want to tweak these up a little bit. Let's say we want to know that is a, whoops, a that. Those are going to be, but not that one. The thing that I've already forgotten what it is. Meta.package. No, no, no. Just one. Thanks. Can have a little bit of that action. That would allow anybody to specify those. It's using storage modifier. This is one of those things that's also been on the list for a while. To have more specific actual scopes in here that you could target with your color scheme. I don't want to get into that right now, though. But that's probably something that we should deal with. If you're an expert in something like that, please let me know. Never wants to deliver messages? Well, what happened? Did you say something that it never showed up? Just looking to see, as a moderator, do I get to see more information than what appears to be here? And the answer to that question is no. Should probably fix those too. Yeah. We'll tweak those up as well. So we can say that that is the definition of the punctuation that starts. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what to do. It's sort of been doing that for as far as long as I can remember. I mean, that particular, it doesn't do it for everything. I mean, it will here. It probably makes more sense if you can see that there's a scroll bar there, but I have system scroll bars turned on so they hide unless you actually use them. So it looks like it's cutting it, but really it's not. The confusing thing is why it decides it needs to wrap that one. That I don't know. Is that a good name for that? We can always change it, right? Maybe we don't want the punctuations on those. Yeah, well, not so much disabled. Well, I guess you could call it disabled. Even in this view, I don't know if you can see it. Probably not because of where the split is. But if I do this, you don't get to see that there's more to this file until I start scrolling, and then the scroll bar appears, and then it goes away. And the same thing happens for horizontal scrolling, but I don't have an example of that at the moment. I think it's system scroll bars is set to like enabled or something. Whatever that setting is, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but you know which one. All right. Is there any utility in having someone be able to style this report such that the square brackets around these specifiers are a different color than the stuff inside? And if so, is that also useful for these? I kind of like the idea of being able to do it just because. It seems like a nice thing to do. Even if it's going to make me sad in a second. Uh, Punctuation definition package specifier begin. Is that ridiculously long enough? That'll fail. Punctuation definition specifier begin does not match scope. Punctuation definition package specifier begin. Yeah. We'll commit this, but we won't push it, and then we will ask for some best practices to apply to that. If we're gonna do that for there, then well, the problem is it needs to be a punctuation definition, but it's not the definition of a package. It's the definition of a package specifier. So if we wanted 3 and not 4, well, I mean, it's going to have at least 4 because punctuation definition something begin, right? We would need to put dashes in these instead. Is that a thing that happens? Do people put dashes in there? I don't like package.begin as a spec because it's not the definition of a package. It's the definition of a specifier for a package. But if you just say specifier, that doesn't really work unless there's another way to specify that as one word, like package type, package underscore type, package dash type. I could be convinced that that's the way to go with that. Well, in my defense, this syntax was totally written 6 years ago. Yeah. So, assuming that we want to be able to distinctly scope the punctuation on the end of these things from the stuff that's in the middle of it, specifically we're dealing with just these bits right here. What's a good name for that? Or do you think that no one would ever want to specify a different color for the parentheses around there as opposed to the content inside? Because that's also a valid thing to do. If we decided we didn't want to do that, I like it from the perspective of I like to add customizability where possible, but I don't want to add customizability in a way that it makes life a gigantic pain in the butt for people. And to that end, these are also going to be similarly metascoped or have their metascoped tweaked or, pardon me, such. And I don't necessarily want to do those either. SNBF, or SBNF, sorry, is on my list of stuff to play with. I will say that. As a developer of Sublime Text, Ben, if you could somehow use Jedi mind powers to convince the powers that be that package names can't have white space in them at all, at any time, for any reason, that would make this syntax very, very easy to write. Alas, where it's just the name of a file or a directory on disk. People don't like to use dashes or underscores in file names. Life became a lot more complicated in these things. You know what? Yeah. I didn't think that would work, but If you did, I would rewrite the syntax in SBNF. Is that a cell? I don't think that's a cell. You know what? Let's really? Did that not do what I thought it should? Hey, don't do that. What the hell? Oh, I was pushing shift. Alright, that'll fail some stuff, right? Yeah. We'll just call it meta package specifier. That seems like a plan. There we go. Yeah. Sadly, I'll tell you this. I can't remember when this was. Probably about a year and a half ago. But I got an issue reported where something funky was going on, and the ultimate determination was that certain functionality didn't work because something wasn't recognized as a package name, and the reason it wasn't recognized as a package name was because it had an asterisk in it. The package in question would be the one that's at the top of the list when you choose this, I think. No. I think it might have been something like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it had an asterisk in it. And I spent a bunch of time trying to make a regex that would capture it appropriately until, pardon me, it occurred to me, wait a minute, you can't use a star in a file name. On at least one platform, that's gonna poop its pants. And then I looked into it, and sure enough, you know, yeah, that's the case. So I got out of having to fix that problem, and instead we made that guy change his package name. So score one. We want the syntax definition to say that for that, I guess meta override expired is good enough. But, yeah. Alright, so those ones are probably good then, because we're probably already checking. So we could do something like that. Okay, that's going to cover override reports and expired override reports. This one should work the same way. One would sincerely hope. Meta package specifier, yep. Windows, I think. You can't have a colon because it's a drive letter thing, which apparently confuses it. I don't think you can use square brackets, but don't quote me on that. I would, when in doubt, the docs for package control. Don't use a / or other restricted characters in the package name. Package names are used as part of a file or folder name depending on what version of Sublime the user is using. Invalid characters include less than, greater than, colon, quotes, slashes, the pipe, question mark, and star. I'm guessing that the answer to your question is Windows, if nothing else. Because clearly Linux doesn't care. You can have a file name that's just 5 spaces if you want to drive yourself insane. Lord knows we've done that any number of times, or a space on the end of a file name without realizing it. No. Similarly, the redirection operators kind of make sense too. Also, I think there's theoretically, and I don't know if anything actually enforces it. Yeah, is specifically, I think the thing that made me work on, think of it, or discover that, and it reminded me, is I was trying to create a file that would exist so that I could make sure that it would scan it, and it got all mad at me. Similarly, it's not mentioned here, but I think there are various file names that for legacy reasons aren't allowed, like con and PRN and the like, because they're actually the names of special devices. I don't know if that's actually still true or not. But theoretically, you can't name files that because it would be ambiguous. Maybe that went away when they finally ditched DOS, though. Hard to say. It is a whole mess. That is very much true. All right, so that is cool. That's the only thing that's ever going to show up there, but it's got the right stuff. So that's cool. No, could be. That's, yeah. That makes sense. It has been a long time. You know, remember the good old days? Was it, you know, something like CopyCon, PRN? And then everything you type would just sprint off on your printer every time you hit the enter key. Okay, that is those. And diff. Ugh. All right, let's see. Those. The only one that's gonna diff is an expired. I don't think it's gonna diff a. Here, let's what was I doing again? That one. Because it includes Python. In the override report, we know that the HTML package has one unknown override thingy, meta.override.unknown, but there isn't one in here. The HTML package does not show up in here. And if we try to diff package, we don't want all packages. Bulk diff a single package. It knows HTML isn't something it can do something with. It can't diff the file. It can't diff this to see how it's different from the version inside the Sublime package file, because there isn't a version inside the Sublime package file. I don't know if I mentioned this in any streams recently, but my MacBook is officially dead. It'll only 99% log any particular user in, because whatever the last step of login actually is, whatever file it needs to load or whatever part of the OS it's trying to spool in or whatever is on a part of the disk that is now officially corrupted. So there's no way to log in, and there's no way to run the diagnostic tool either, because that also failed horribly. So rest in peace, Mac, because unless some kind person gives me another one for free, or Apple decides to start selling them for the amount of money that I would be willing to pay for one, unfortunately, there will be no more Macs in my life. So we have to make sure everything we do works well without having to do that. Can you run a Mac emulator on a non-Mac? Or a Mac VM? Or do they frown upon that? I would assume they frown upon that. Yeah, that syntax is going to require the same change as the other one did. So, that's going to mean something. Illegally? Oh. But what if somebody kicked down my door? Nah, that's not the one I want. I want that one. Nope. I had it right the first time. I'm sure we have a similar thing here. But I'm in Canada, though, Chuckles. Hello, by the way. My problem with Mac, such as it is that it's been sitting there for the past 3 years, and the only thing that I've ever used it for personally is if somebody asks a question about Sublime Text, specifically on Mac OS, I can just sort of spin the desk around and try it to see. So from that perspective, I don't think my wife would sign off on getting a computer just in case someone has a question. Sadly. That is a diff report. So meta package specifier. Yeah. That'll work. And the same one is used everywhere. So we would open you. And whoa, guy, let's not go crazy here. There we go. Intel 12th Gen is the only competitor yeah. Oh yeah, and our new work laptops are in, and they're only 9th generation. Yeah, I think there is an enterprise something. Don't quote me on this because it was a good decade ago, at least, I think. By my reckoning of time, I was sitting at this desk, but not in this room. I was in my previous office, which I shared with my coworker, and we had a evaluation version of some kind of Intel tool set that had tons of thread checker type stuff and Valgrind related things. And I distinctly remember that it was commercial software to some degree, because we tried to get the company to buy us a copy of it and they told us to go to hell. I'm not entirely sure about the details because it was so long ago. I can't even remember what it was called at this point. But basically, one of the things that it did, and the reason why we were playing with it, was if you compile with their compiler, I think it was, and link with some of their libraries, kind of like a Valgrind type situation, it could analyze your code and tell you if there were potential for deadlocks that you may or may not be hitting and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. Didn't find anything overly useful, but Jenkins? Yeah, Sublime is incredibly zippy indeed. But, you know, as we know, I'm potentially biased in the realm of being happy about Sublime in general. Cool. One of the things that we have going at work is several tools. CodeQL is one, and SonarLint is another. We also use TSLint, which is weird because it's being deprecated in favor of ESLint. And there's at least two other things that are used in scans: Fortify and White Source, if I remember correctly. But whenever a branch is pushed, it spools off tons of checks to see, and the CodeQL stuff that we have verifies that you know, it basically does the same sort of thing as Sonar, but different. Sort of like it's a linter. CodeQL does more, I think, flow analysis of things. So Sonar can say something like your test coverage is below the threshold, and it has lint rules that can say things like you should probably use 3 equal signs here instead of this, or you know, we're doing web development stuff, so it might say something like this variable is already undefined, you don't need to check to see if it is undefined, and all those sorts of code quality things. Whereas CodeQL does the sort of, the different thing, but different to what Valgrind does, certainly. What we're not doing anything with anything Valgrind related right now because it's all web stuff. But the Intel tool that I was mentioning definitely had some Valgrindy / electric fence type action going on to help you find address corruption and all of that sort of stuff. I can't, it was some sort of Intel. It's the only part of it that I can remember, and that either not all of it was freely available, or there was, because we were a company, we would have had to pay to use it. Like it would be free for personal use or open source projects, but you had to pay if you're a company. I can't remember the exact details, but the CodeQL stuff that we're doing is, it's not like Valgrind, which would let you know this is the thing where your memory got trumped and the like. But it can do the static flow analysis to say there is a security concern here because the value that ultimately gets passed to this function came from an external object as a part of a web request, and it's used as a key in an object. So we didn't notice anything along the call chain that would sanitize this to make sure that it's safe. So you're open to security problems if somebody made a property named Proto and blah blah blah. I have a feeling that somebody just reached into the box of tools and started throwing stuff out, and they're trying to see which stuff is more useful than other stuff. But I guess the closest thing that we have to Valgrind in the stuff that we're doing, which again is entirely Node.js related, is something like Fire Clinic or something along those lines. It's got like a doctor in the name or fire in the name, and fire might be spelled with a Y instead of an I, which does runtime analysis of you doing stuff to determine if you're like, less that you're leaking things, although I think it did tell us that. This thing is constantly creating references that never seem to go away, and other stuff like there are so many async calls in here that every line of code is like 14 loops through the event loop before it eventually gets anywhere interesting. I think that's all of them. Whoops. Yeah. You know, as weird as this sounds, I miss the kind of problems that Valgrind is looking for. I would kill for a bug like that at this point. Tab 9, auto learned our function declarations. By the time I type func, it auto completes 20 lines of boilerplate code that we need. Huh. Interesting. I've never used Tab 9 or Kite or whatever that new one is from GitHub, that autopilot. I'm an old man. Oh, right. No. So let's see what we got here. The diff syntax includes Copilot. Yeah. We also have a meta dot package dot specifier as well. I haven't heard anything about Copilot in a while. I'm not sure if everybody in the universe but me is using it now, so nobody needs to talk about it, or everybody got tired of talking about it, or it's not done yet, or what. But suddenly, at least in my circles, all talk of it seemed to dry up months ago. I want you. We want you, and we want you. And then that, and yeah, beauty. Okay. Let's code block that. I thought, wasn't there an extension for it like way back when it originally was released? I know people have been asking, or people were asking at the time, hey, is there like a thing for... Actually, maybe that happened in the last stream here on YouTube. They asked if there's a package for it for Sublime Text, and I only recall that someone was thinking about doing it, but I didn't know that they ever did. Yeah, for those that are unfamiliar with that, if you've never seen this before, when reload auto-populates, it automatically inserts the brackets because it, or the parentheses, because it knows that is something that is always used, right? Which is fantastically awesome, amongst other things. But I have found that I'm usually rely on autocomplete specifically to pull in the name of a longer symbol when I already know what it is. But the auto-completion stuff that's, pardon me, been added in Sublime Text 4, I find very, very handy in a way that I don't necessarily. I've been using LSP on my work machine to try to get a little bit more familiar with it for the purposes of creating videos. And mostly, it still just slows me down in its attempts to help me out. If it was faster, I would actually find it useful. But it's so slow. And I don't think that has anything to do with the Sublime package either, because I have my coworkers using Visual Studio and it's even slower for them than it is for me. Ooh, that would be cool. Pull out the common things. The other aspect of that is, if I remember correctly, something along the lines of whenever it auto-completes a variable, it'll pull the most commonly assigned values that it sees in the code base for those variables to make it easier. I outlined it in one of the videos I did. I remember that. This is the only bug in autocomplete in all of the builds of Sublime, even way back when it was, still 40/50, and people were complaining about the things are in a different order or snippets appear twice. None of that ever bothered me because I normally don't pay any attention to that sort of thing. Normally I would just type just enough to grab the stuff that I want. But the thing that's been bugging me lately is if you pick something with the mouse, it don't work. And I never realized how much I relied on that in the Windows code base that I'm working in until that stopped doing something. Yeah. I mean, in this particular case, I would assume that to be more useful for that, it would have to cycle between reload with just parentheses, reload with lib, and reload with source or something. But yeah, I mean, I would rather just copy and paste it myself if I was going to try to replicate that much stuff. We were committing, weren't we? Yeah. In override and diff reports. That's not a word, huh? Well. In the package report. Okay. And yeah, like how much sophisticated analysis would it have to be for something of only marginal use? That's definitely one of those situations where you sort of balance the maybe cool in some situations with this is going to be like a lot of work. Which one of these is the better gain? That's usually how we try to approach stuff anyway. assuming that we're allowed to, and without, you know, just being forced to allow other people in on the fun, if you will. Whoops, pardon me. As an outside observer, various parts of it seem like they must be complicated just based on the fact that they are blazingly fast. And I've used a lot of other things that are not nearly as fast. There's magic sprinkled in there. Let's commit those. Yeah, I don't think like that. Oh, that might be a little much. Now, well, we're at 10 o'clock. We might need to jump on out of here. But the next aspect of this is to augment our on-hover event, which currently only does something when you hover over the name of a package, such that it can tell if you are hovering over something with a meta package specifier or one of the the meta.package.shipped installed or unpacked, so that we can basically implement, hover your mouse over this and it can say this is a package that ships with Sublime Text. This is a user installed package. This is a package that is in an unpacked folder. We might even, in this one, just defer it to that. These are the sorts of things we need to come up with. Here, we would do something similar to that one, maybe just those, or again, maybe we use the same hover for both of those. Night Ashman, I think we're probably gonna, well, if this was Twitch, I'd say we're gonna raid out, but I have a few things that I have to do before people arrive at work tomorrow to make sure that our QA system is up and going. So I was gonna actually keep this stream going here for 3 or 4 hours and work through this, but I forgot that that was the thing that I have to. We're in the middle of testing some stuff. So with that in mind, I think what we're gonna do is this. Thanks everybody for showing up here. Monday streams here on YouTube should be a regular thing for the foreseeable future. This sickness is gone. I mean, well, we never know if we're gonna get horribly ill, right? But the stuff that I had going on that stopped me from doing those first couple of streams, that is all done now. I almost had to help a friend or the neighbor move some stuff, but I think that got put off. In any case, YouTube streams will be coming back on a regular basis for the foreseeable future. We're going to be working on override audit stuff. You know, if you've missed the beginning of this, basically what we're trying to do here is come up with some bug fixes and some simple features that we can use to release one last version of override audit that targets Sublime Text 3, so we can jump our development purely to Sublime Text 4 and start taking advantage of some of the cool stuff that are available in that version of Sublime. Who knows? There's at least 3 things that we're thinking of working on in that regard. There could be more. So that is what we're going to be doing on these streams. So if you're interested in that sort of thing and you haven't already done so, you should use the buttons down below the stream to thumb subscribe and share. If you subscribe, you should get told when streams are scheduled. You can also follow me on Twitter. There should be a link for that down in the description. And if you like these development streams and you would like to see more of this sort of thing, working on projects and discussion of what's actually happening and why, while also discussing things with the chat, you might want to follow me on Twitch as well. Link for that is down in the description of this video as well, because I stream there on Wednesdays and Fridays. Now, once this stream is done, it is going to jump into the realm of the unlisted, but never fear, because if you check the channel page, there should be a playlist called Sublime Text Live. All live stream replays are put automatically into that playlist. And you'll also get chat playback as well. But for that, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you either next Monday, or if you follow me on Twitch, you'll see me on Wednesday, where we're probably going to be pretty unhappy with Chrome. In the meantime, I hope you have a sublime week, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Good night, everybody.